Greetings, Binge Lords. This is Jason from Binge Movies, and I'm here with two very special guests. I'm here with Brad Henderson and Kurtis Spieler, who are filmmakers in their own right, but also work for a label and a distribution company that people who are familiar with Binge Movies will probably know. It's called Vinegar Syndrome. And if you don't know what Vinegar Syndrome is, they're a genre film preservation and distribution company. And Brad here is the acquisition and special features producer, among many other, sort of a jack of all trades at Vinegar Syndrome. And then Kurtis, the internet says you just work for Vinegar Syndrome. But to quote you, quoting Futurama, when you do things right, people won't be sure that you did anything at all. So does that just mean you do everything right at Vinegar Syndrome?
I mean, I think I do. Yeah, well, Vinegar Syndrome, we're kind of a DIY company. So the guys here, we all, and girls, all have like multiple jobs. But I guess my main job is restoration artist and editor. So,
yeah, I want to start with Vinegar Syndrome itself. How long have you guys been around? And just assuming some people don't know who you are, what kind of flicks do you specialize in?
Vinegar Syndrome's been around for close to 10 years now.
Okay.
I started in the company kind of doing freelance work probably around 2018. It was the Undertaker release. That was the very first thing I ever worked on. But I've known of Vinegar Syndrome pretty much ever since Night Train to Terror came out. I was a fan and interacted with James and Brandon there, kind of doing, favors and just joking around and, shooting the shit. And eventually it led into a job. But yeah, I've been there for, 4 years now, something like that, 5 years. In spirit, probably 8. But yeah.
Were you the one to make the call to release Don't Panic Pajamas?
Yes. Yeah, I'm responsible. I'm responsible for that.
Okay. All right. So Brad, I'm going to follow up with you. According to the internet, you have two main tasks: finding movies that may be lost to time and then developing special features for them. But how hard is it to secure one underseen genre films? And how in the world do you develop special features for movies that barely existed in the first place?
Yeah, well, we do to kind of be clear. We have an acquisitions team. There's kind of like Kurtis said, all of us do a little bit. But as far as like kind of recommending movies, we all kind of do that. But it's kind of Joe, Ruben, and myself that kind of really push for a lot of them. But everybody has their hands in it. Justin, Liberty, Ryan, everybody's recommending movies. We're all movie lovers.
Yeah.
So, we all kind of shoot the shit with movies, and then things come up. We talk about whatnot. So, I mean, it's just kind of a wide knowledge from everybody of growing up with this stuff, going to the video store when we're all kids and remembering these movies. And then, of course, watching new movies consistently, and always experiencing new things. As far as extras go, I mean, one of the first things I ever did for Vinegar Syndrome was just finding people. Because a lot of these people haven't been in films or been in the spotlight in 30, 40 years.
Right.
So like Liam Neeson, I just had a, special set of skills that helped me find these people, and I would bring some talent in, and, help set up interviews. And I was pretty good at it. So, that's kind of what led to the job, and that went into finding rights and recommending movies, and it just kind of all fell into place. So,
okay, so when the acquisition team, Kurtis, brings you a pile of junk and says, "This is what we want on Blu-ray," and you're the guy that has to edit and restore some of that material, are you ever overwhelmed by that task? Like, what the hell have you guys given me? Because we're gonna get to New York Ninja, and it's just spools of uncut film without even soundtrack. So, but other than New York Ninja, are there sometimes you're handed projects and you're like, Do you expect me to be a miracle worker? And are you working miracles? Are you turning water to wine for exploitation films and pornos?
Yeah, I mean, once again, I think we are. Yeah. So when it comes to restoration, I mean, it really comes down to the elements. It comes down to how well the film elements were taken care of in the first place. And so, that's the thing with Vinegar Syndrome. Like, you look at some other companies, like you take like Criterion or Scream Factory or, one of these other companies where they have elements that might have been taken care of better than ours. We tend to get movies that are lost or hard to find, and sometimes weren't always taken care of as well. So sometimes we have to put in a lot of extra work to get them to look good. And sorry, some of these other companies, they have these films that were already historically significant, so they were taken care of well prior to that, which makes, I'm not saying that their job is easier. I'm just saying that, we're digging in the dirt sometimes, and so, we work hard to bring these movies back to life. And yes, some of them are much harder than others.
So this is a question for both of you guys, kind of following up, Kurtis, with what you just said. So like the work of like an Alamo Drafthouse or Scream Factory, Shout Factory, some other folks you mentioned over like the last 15 years has brought new attention, so to speak, to like cult movies and bringing them back to the forefront of nerd culture. Although for movie fanatics like ourselves, cult movies have always been, from the video store era, even before that. If you were a true movie nerd, there is that attraction for the underseen, forgotten film, the cult film, the exploitation film, the non-mainstream stuff. But it seems like there's been companies that have helped bring that back to the forefront of nerd culture. And I guess my question is, why do you think now, in the internet age, there is such an audience for either movies forgotten at time or movies that never got a shot in the first place?
Yeah, I'll jump in first. I mean, this is just a personal observation, as I feel like the more that technology, the faster it expands, the more people yearn for like nostalgia. And so you've seen this like rise of streaming, but you've also seen this rise of physical media. And so you're seeing this like with vinyl making the resurgence that it has. And even like the VHS tape collecting has had this big resurgence. So I think it's like the more technology progresses, the more people kind of yearn for nostalgia. So I think that's a big part of it. And then I think people just recognizing these films. I mean, you have filmmakers out there that are, around our age now who grew up on movies like this and are now making modern movies that are influenced by these films. Obviously Quentin Tarantino is probably the biggest example of that. And so people are finding out that there's a whole other world of movies that exists out there that maybe they didn't know about. And so they're going back and finding these things that are influencing modern filmmakers. And I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of piggyback off what Kurtis said, it is a certain kind of group of people that really kind of push, towards this. And I would say roughly the ages where, you would probably go back maybe 7 or 8 years ago, kind of when this really, really kickstarted and started increasing year by year, getting more and more popular. It was around the ages of people that, 30, 45 years old. And those ages were the people that were at the video stores. So when you go to the video store, these movies would be on the shelf. It'd be one tape, but, you go to mom and pop places, you would have just this plethora of films. And, over time, because of how these stores operated, the demand for the movies that stayed in replication and kept getting released were, obviously big studio films, big cult films, stuff like that. And really, a lot of it started on DVD, a little bit, but there wasn't a collector's market. I mean, I remember going to Best Buy and getting really excited over Code Red and Anchor Bay DVD, and that was like a big thing for me because some of these tapes were hard to find. So that's originally when it started. Like, Scream Factory, Vinegar Syndrome, Arrow, all these people, there was companies beforehand
Yeah.
that was kind of doing the same thing, but it was just DVD, and they were doing quote unquote restoration, but it was on DVD. Yeah, it was just kind of bringing some of these things to life. And I think a big thing that kickstarted it was people wanting to see these movies again with a better picture quality. So the demand started increasing, and they're wanting, like Kurtis said, the nostalgia back, and having kind of going on Amazon or these people's websites or Diabolic DVD or Grindhouse Video,
Mhm.
and just looking at the plethora of choices, it makes you kind of feel like you're back in the day.
Yeah.
But the thing is that there's just so much out there that to be discovered. That there's films that are out there that are great that no one has seen yet. Or people that have power to kind of bring it back into the atmosphere, I guess you could say. So yeah, I mean, I think every company is working hard and trying to get quality content, and sometimes it's not about if the movie's good. Sometimes as kind of like our thing is
Yeah.
that just the movie shouldn't disappear.
Yeah.
Not everything that Vinegar Syndrome releases, we're going to say this is the best movie ever made. No. Sometimes the movies aren't that great. But it's not the point. The point is to restore these films so they don't disappear. I think our catalog's very strong. Do I like every film in there? No, not necessarily. But that's just taste,
Yeah.
That's kind of how everybody is. But no film should disappear, no matter how bad it is. I know it's quick and easy to say, oh, yeah, that should have been left undiscovered, or that should have been left in the garage and disappeared. Well, no, it's people's livelihood. You know how hard it is to make a movie?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I just think, and people like to discover new things. This movie has existed for 40 years and you've never heard of it. And now some companies putting it together with some, great packaging and a great restoration with 2 hours of extras. What is this? That's, I guess, what people say. And honestly, a big thing that I see from especially our fan base are blind buys. A lot of people just blind buy stuff because it's kind of hard to find. And if you do find it, you're probably watching some third generation, fourth generation blurry VHS rip off of, YouTube.
Yeah.
So,
Well, so that
it's kind of cool, to see these movies back out again with the care and respect that companies just give them.
what's the thing other than just, hey, we want to preserve this, that really makes you go, that is worth, as a company, investing Kurtis's time, restoring it, investing your time and your team's time, developing special features for it, that you think that the Vinegar Syndrome audience or hardcore cinephile audience could be attracted to? Is there some kind of like internal rubric that you have? I mean, what is it, a gut feeling? What is the thing that makes you go, this is one we got to put out?
Usually sex and violence. That's really our measurement for a lot of things.
But there are so many movies that have sex and violence in them, and you're not putting everything out. I don't think you guys have put a Don Dohler film out yet. I think that's that I know of. I remember
Night Beast.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, it's really on a case-by-case basis. I mean, each film that crosses our path, I mean, we say no to a lot of things, but I mean, there's a lot of films that we don't just because we want to see them back out there. I mean, I've discovered so many movies working at Vinegar Syndrome that I didn't even know existed. And then all of a sudden we start restoring it, and I was like, oh my God, this movie is awesome. So, I really just think we kind of take it on a film-by-film basis. I'm not sure if there's there's no actual guidelines that we go by. It's really just kind of a gut feeling if we think, hey, this movie is cool and people should see it. So,
well, Kurtis, has there ever been a movie that you've been given that was like, this is cool, people should see it? You guys start getting into it and you're like, it can't be restored. Like, it's sad, but there's just not enough here that we can put it out to the Vinegar Syndrome quality, or that you and your team are like, we put time, money, hours into this, and it's not releasable, even though it would be pretty badass.
No, because a lot of it really comes down to finding the elements prior to things. So there's definitely been movies that were on our radar and we would like to release them, but then tracking down the film elements became difficult, or we couldn't find good enough film elements to work with. And then sometimes, there's definitely been movies where we've had to take elements from different sources to make the best version that we could. So a lot of it really always starts with the film elements. So finding them is a big step. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of things that we've kind of gone after, and then we found out we really couldn't find elements, and then either they have to wait until we find them, or we just kind of have to pass on it. So elements are key.
So that brings us to the obscure of the obscure. You guys are releasing obscure films for preservation. You have to have the appropriate amount of elements to put the film back together and release it in a way that is like worthy of your customers' money and worthy of your guys' time. Yet you find this 40-plus-year-old movie nobody has seen, nobody has heard of, and it has very few of the necessary elements to make a feature-length film that's releasable. And then this one, you go, that one's worth recreating from the ground up. We're talking about New York Ninja.
Abductions of young women are still being reported. Another woman with mysterious radiation burns has been discovered.
We're gonna have a baby.
Oh my God.
I can't believe that John's wife was murdered.
You have to try and pull yourself together.
This city owes me.
Well, what's that?
Justice. Why won't anyone do anything?
We are strong on crime, and together we have the power.
This is a big city. We're doing what we can.
Dude, what happened? Is he okay? What?
Huh.
Oh, what? Shit. What?
Tell the others, I'm coming for them.
I need you to help me.
I would, but I want them dead.
Crime has remained at an all-time low thanks to ninja fever.
We're going live with this.
These men murdered her because of what she saw. It's linked to these abductions.
There's something weighing us down. It's that damn ninja.
New York Ninja's a real hero.
What was it that made this one the one where you're like, we're going to reconstruct this movie almost from the ground up?
All right, so New York Ninja in and of itself is a story. And so really, it kind of started with me. Like, I don't want to take full credit for it, but like when I started working for Vinegar Syndrome, so we have our film archive here, and this is where we store all of our film. And on literally the very first day I started working for Vinegar Syndrome, which was, I think, like 4 years ago, I was going on a tour in the film archive with Brandon Upson, who does a lot of our film scanning here. And he was showing me around, and there were these boxes that were labeled New York Ninja. And I remember Brandon telling me that, you know, it was an unfinished, unedited movie. And one of the reasons why I became involved with Vinegar Syndrome to begin with is the hopes that down the road we would kind of move into doing original productions and all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the reasons that I was hired. So when I found out that we had this unfinished movie in our film archive, immediately I was like, "Ooh, that would be interesting to finish it." Brandon told me at that point that all the sound elements were missing. So I realized at that point it wasn't going to be just an edit to put it together, that there was actually going to be a level of production. And at the time, the company wasn't really ready for that yet. And I was still, you know, kind of getting my feet in the water and like learning the company. So after about a year of me working here, I proposed to the owners, you know, we have this film that's sitting in our film archive that is unfinished. Would you let me finish it? And they said yes. And that's really where the journey started.
Brad, when you start working for the company, are you aware of New York Ninja? Were you involved in its acquisition? What's your history with the film?
So my history with the film was because Kurtis and I were somewhat kind of kind of hired around the same time in a way. I mean, he's in Connecticut. I'm in Florida. So, Kurtis was already working for Vinegar Syndrome. I was doing a kind of acquisitions, like helping get some films to Vinegar Syndrome, helping find people. And I think the first day I spoke to Kurtis was about New York Ninja.
Wow.
I think the day that right? Because we had a phone call. Yeah, because I think Ryan was like, "Hey," or Brandon was like, "Hey, Kurtis, we want you to find somebody for this movie," and they said Kurtis is going to call you, and I was at a gas station when he called me, and he's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of this, martial artist John Liu, and we need to find him. We have this movie, kind of the whole shebang about this unfinished movie with no sound. Let's try to find John Liu." And that was my introduction to New York Ninja. Is we were trying to track down to see the story behind it, because we didn't know anything really at the time. It was unfinished, and had no sound, and obviously there's differences can being unfinished and unedited. I mean, that there was both of those.
Right.
So it was kind of a gamble too on Vinegar Syndrome's part, and I'm sure it was pretty nerve-wracking for Kurtis, was that scanning these elements as they were coming in, what's on them? Like, is there a movie kind of complete on here? Is there only 45 minutes of a movie? Does it even make any? Because we didn't have a script either, So my introduction was trying to find John Liu. And that was kind of my first journey with it. And then down the road, when we kept on hitting dead ends, it came about of, let's edit the film together, do sound, hire, some genre actors,
right,
and see if we can actually make something of this. But that was Kurtis working pretty much every day after he was doing the Vinegar Syndrome work on other stuff, going to Ninja for the late night Ninja parties that he was doing by himself at Vinegar Syndrome.
So you're at a gas station somewhere in Florida, let's say Central Florida, somewhere, wherever.
I don't live there. I was just getting gas.
Okay, all right. And you're pumping your gas. The phone rings. You got a brand new coworker. This guy says there's a movie nobody in the world has heard of, starring a guy that some people have heard of, but it's never been released, and has no sound. We have no script. It's not edited. No post-production work had been done at all. It's just reels of raw footage, basically. Don't know what we got, but I'd like to recreate this movie, and I've been given a green light. Let's get this done. Can you find the guy, John Liu? So for those who don't know John Liu and his history in martial arts film, especially in the overseas market and then the New York market, who is John Liu, and who was he circa 1984? Fill us in. Give us a little bit of history.
Well, so it's funny because I was actually familiar with John Liu prior to this movie.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell this story real quick because it's kind of fun. But for those that have seen the movie, the very first footage we saw when we scanned it in on the first reel to see what was on there was the fight by the water. If you've seen the movie, John has this gold memorial for his wife, and there's these punks doing like flips off of park benches and going all crazy. That's the very first thing that we saw here in the building.
And the very strange facial mask apparatuses where it's just like the same five guys and very different shit in their face at different fucking times.
Yeah. So like instantly when we saw that, we were like, oh man, we might have something here. And I had seen on the slate, like I just didn't think that anybody of note would be in the film. It hadn't even crossed my mind.
Right.
And so when I saw the name John Liu on the slate, but it didn't click until I saw him.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, that's John Liu, because he's a very recognizable face. So for those who don't know, John Liu, he was a martial arts actor in the 70s, probably most known for a movie called The Secret Rivals. That was probably his like breakout movie. And, he was cast in some of these films. And, as time went on, he then stopped just acting, and he got into directing his own movies with, I believe it was his wife. They went to like Europe or whatever, and they started making their own movies that he would star in. He would like write, produce, direct, star, all that kind of stuff. And I'll be 100% honest, they're not great.
Right.
His films when he was just acting, like his martial arts skills are great, but then these other films, I think it was just they didn't have the budgets, and he had too much on his plate, and so they just really weren't doing that well. And I think New York Ninja, it was his only American production, but I think this was his last like hurrah, so to speak. And because the movie just never even was finished, and there was budgetary problems and production issues, and then the company that started at 21st Century Distribution, they went bankrupt, and so it just fell by the wayside. And actually after that he retired. So for anybody that's into martial arts films or wants to see films that he's in, I would recommend The Secret Rivals definitely is a must, and Invincible Armor is another one that people will probably recognize if you're a Wu-Tang fan. I think they sample a part of the movie in one of their songs. I'm drawing a blank on which one right now, but so that's basically the background of John Liu. And again, unfortunately, we actually were able to track him down. So
okay, so you guys find these reels of this unedited, nonsensical film without sound, and you decide you want to rebuild the movie from the ground up, and you decide you're going to finish it because you see this scene with the park bench, and you're like, this is worthwhile. We want to go with it. But Kurtis, you're a filmmaker yourself. Both of you guys are. So as filmmakers, how many of your filmmaking skill sets had to come into practice, and which ones you're not shooting it? You can't go out and get extra coverage. You can't go out and get different shots. You can't really, this isn't like a special edition. There's stuff that exists, but not really at the same time. So what skill sets as a filmmaker come into play for a task like that? It's very unique.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, literally all of them. I was joking around, like as I was doing this whole movie, my girlfriend, who's now currently my fiance, like I kept saying to her, I feel like everything that I've done in my filmmaking career has led up to this movie.
Wow.
Because it was really about, more than anything, fixing the problems. And that's what a lot of filmmaking is. But so the movies that I've made 3 low-budget feature films. I've made a number of shorts, but I've made 3 low-budget feature films, all horror movies. And, because of budget, I would write, I would help produce, I would direct, and I would edit. And none of those things were, well, except for directing. Directing is what I wanted to do. And over the years, as I was doing my own films, like writing just became part of getting a movie made. Like if I wanted to get something made, I would have to write within a budget that I knew I could afford. So it's like, okay, well, I'll just be the one to write it then. So that I could focus on the budget and keep things confined or whatever I needed to do to actually make it happen. So I was, building writing skills while I was doing that. And then editing, it just became kind of easier to edit my own films because, when you're on a low budget production, sometimes you're moving very quickly and you have something in your mind, and it's sometimes just easier to take over the editing reins later instead of trying to funnel that through an editor, because you're like, listen, I know what I'm going to do with this. So like, I will edit it. And then what would happen is I would find my own problems and I would have to figure out how to fix them. So, a lot of filmmaking is really about problem solving and fixing your own problems. So with my films, because of the low budgets, it was a lot of problem solving, and all of that came into play here, especially the editing, because like when I made my own films, if I got into the editing room and a scene didn't work, really have the luxury of going back and reshooting anything. You know, it's like you have like 2 weeks to make this movie.
Right.
Then the cast is gone and they're off on something else. Like you can't really bring them back sometimes. And so I would have to sit there and go, okay, I didn't get the coverage that I needed. How do I make this work? And so when I got into New York Ninja, that was one of the big things is there's very little coverage. It's like 1 or 2 takes on stuff. And, you know, sometimes these scenes weren't even finished or, you know, I'm trying to get into their mind of what they were even doing. We've heard that it was really like a fly by the seat of your pants type shoot where they were kind of like making up stuff as they were going along. And so I can see all that in the raw footage. And so really trying to figure out how to compile that and make these scenes work when they really almost didn't have any right to work is really where, you know, my skills came in. So yeah, I'm grateful for my like low budget film education because it really helped bring me to where I am right now.
Brad tries to find John Liu through a phone call of a phone call of a phone call of a phone call. Somebody's like, we found him. He's living in a pretty desperate situation in a shack. And he's washed his hands of the movie and he's like, best of luck to you. And that's it. That's the only word that you get from the guy. I mean, there's another way you could have done this. You could have done it almost in a mocking way where this isn't a very good movie. It's not complete. We can kind of make it whatever we want it to be. We could make it make even less sense. We could make the stupidest version of this movie and, you know, whatever. You don't do that. You actually try to put together the movie in a coherent way. I could see this going a different way, and I was really grateful that you actually tried to make a movie out of this. It's an actual film now.
Yeah. Well, I think it really comes down to Vinegar Syndrome being a preservation company. I mean, that was a big part of it. Like so it's really hard to explain this because like for anybody who's seen it, you know it's a silly, campy, over-the-top film. And so for us to say we took it seriously, it's like it makes people go like, well, like how did you take it seriously?
Yeah.
But it's because we didn't do exactly what you just said, which is take it farther than it already was. It would be so easy to add in more jokes or add in funnier dialogue and make it, you know, this really tongue-in-cheek kung pao type of film.
Right.
And to us, like, we just weren't going to do that because we're Vinegar Syndrome, you know? And so we took it from a serious standpoint from the very beginning, but we knew exactly what it was. So like we had the benefit of being, you know, a modern audience where we know what plays well these days. And these fun, campy movies, especially from the 80s, have this like charm to them.
Yeah.
And so we knew that, but we knew that the only way to make it work was take it seriously and let whatever humor or campiness or whatever just come out organically. Don't try to force it in any way. So, and what I've told everybody is that the way I approached this was basically I imagined myself in the 80s. Sorry, I don't know if there's a fire truck going by. I don't know if you can hear that.
Yes.
So I'm in the Vinegar Syndrome building. We are right next to we are between a fire department and a police department.
Yeah. So am I here. So we'll see if I can get one coming my way.
Yeah. So we're safe, but every one of these, anytime I'm ever doing any kind of Zoom call or anything, there's always a fire truck or something going by. Anyway. Yeah. So so I imagined myself just working for a company sort of like Vinegar Syndrome in the 80s, you know, like a small studio or something, an independent place. And I just imagine if they brought me this movie like as an editor and were like, hey, listen, the budget, you know, we're out of money, but we've got to release this. You've got to figure out how to make it work. I just took it from that standpoint. And so I just said, okay, I'm going to put myself in a mind frame where I'm just going to try to make the best possible movie I can out of this, because all of these movies, like whether it's like a movie like Miami Connection or Samurai Cop or like one of those types of movies, those guys were going out to make a serious film.
Right.
Now, whether or not you find it serious, That's eye of the beholder. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But that's what gives these movies so much charm these days, is people love them for that. And so, and again, we have the benefit of being a modern audience and knowing that. So I just was like, okay, I'm just going to imagine that this is just this badass ninja movie, and I am going to do my best with it to make it as badass as I can, and then just let it be what it's going to be after that. So,
well, I appreciate that, because as a movie reviewer and film critic kind of guy, you know, and a cult movie fan, you know, sometimes people, they go, oh, you should do this. You should cover these movies. You should review these movies because they're bad. You like bad movies. And it's like, now they're missing whatever it is, be it a Sharknado or whatever. They're missing some of that, the charm of a movie like a Don't Panic, a New York Ninja, a Miami Connection, a Samurai Cop. It's the earnestness. As, you know, these movies were maybe partially made cynically because they were trying to cash in on an action genre and the home video market or whatever. But at the same time, these were aspiring filmmakers who didn't have money, skill, whatever the case may be, but there was an earnestness. And somehow you have retained that organic earnestness that makes the movie inadvertently more funny. Camp that's intentional camp isn't actually camp. You know, it's spoof. This is not a spoof of a 80s exploitation ninja movie or martial arts film or a violent, gory, nudity-filled CIA radioactive masturbator movie. This is not that. This was an earnest film that does feel slapdash, that does feel like, especially the action sequences were sort of like, get 10 guys to surround the one guy who does martial arts and have him just figure it out on the fly. But you capture that so well that I think this project is a success, if for no other reason than that. You did it. You didn't make a movie making fun of itself. The movie does not have a hint of self-awareness in the edit or anything like that. It is as true to what I imagine it would have been edited like. And it's pretty amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, you know, I didn't know what I was getting myself into at the beginning. Like, honestly, like, I presented this to the owners and they greenlit it before we even saw a single frame of film.
Wow.
So I mean, obviously we could have kind of, you know, jumped off the train at any point in time if it wasn't really going to work, you know, but they said, okay, yeah, if you think you can do this, let's scan it. Let's see what we have. And if you can turn this into a movie, like, do it, you know? And so the train was already in motion at that point. But then when we started to see the footage, that's really where it all changed. Because honestly, like, I thought in my head before I even saw any of the film, I was just hoping that it was like a vigilante, like, ninja movie in New York. And I assumed that it was going to be kind of boring in places and that I might have to liven it up a little bit, not necessarily in like a comical sense, but try to figure out how to make it work. This was like my thought before even going in, was like, man, I hope it's like either exploitative enough or violent enough. I hope there's something to latch onto and it's not just this boring movie that I'm not going to be able to work with. And then I started seeing the footage, and every scene was, if you've seen the movie, you know, every single scene has a what the fuck moment going on in it. And yes. I was like, oh my God, like, this is literal gold. Like, we have unearthed literal gold here. So in my head, I had already gone in with the idea of, like, you know, sort of treating it as a restoration preservation project. But and you know, when I saw the footage, I was like, okay, we play this thing straight and we let it be what it's going to be. And, you know, Brad and I had numerous conversations about this. The owners here at Vinegar Syndrome, we had numerous conversations about this. We talked to the actors about this, the sound design. Everybody was like, listen, we know what it is. Play it straight. And, you know, there's definitely some parts where the punks, like, you know, they camp it up, the voice actors, and that's all fine. But yeah, it was really just like, we just couldn't believe it. I mean, and you can't create that. Like if you go out, you can't recreate that is what I guess I would say. So there are a lot of guys that go out nowadays and they try to make a cult film. And when you try to make a cult film, it shows. And like this just is not just because of the story. I mean, the story kind of elevates it to cult status in terms of the restoration and all that. But there is such like you said, an earnestness to it where these guys were trying to make a good movie. And, I think they were trying to kind of do a bit of a comic book type style.
Yeah.
I think that there's definitely some intentional humor, I think, in there too, that they had planned. But they were going out trying to make a good movie, and it shows. And like retaining that is the only way to make it work. So for me, the only thing I could do is, work with that same mind frame of like, okay, we're going to make this the best damn movie it's going to be,
Brad, when you see this thing assembled near completion for the first time, what are your thoughts? Are you like, Kurtis is a genius? What do you?
I can answer very quickly that Kurtis is a genius, 100%. But yeah, so my history with it was trying to find John Liu, and that was like probably around August. That I had that phone call, and I spent a few months doing it, and then I was in Connecticut in December of that year, I went up there to work, and we had our Black Friday stuff and things like that, and Kurtis pulls me aside and he says, "Hey, you want to see some clips of New York Ninja?" And I was like, "Well, fuck yeah, I do." I haven't seen anything just yet. So he just has he's still in the editing process. I mean, it's far from, all the elements are scanned at this point. Is basically assembling everything, trying to figure out the pattern of this movie without really, a script or anything. So, I mean, he shows me the scene with the plutonium killer, like putting his hands like in the like briefcase and charging up, and he showed me a couple of the fight scenes, the rooftop fight scene, the ninja on roller skates, the ninja being dragged and doing the flip in the car. And I'm just like, what is this?
What is this?
Like, holy shit. So, yeah, sort of like that following year, after I got back, that's when, we were having those conversations about, finishing the movie. It was always those conversations, but it was kind of like, well, how do we go about it? Kurtis is obviously editing the thing, and I said, well, I'd be happy to help out and produce it or whatever it needs to be. I've always been kind of a go-getter in making things happen and recruiting things and getting people what they need. What a producer does, obviously. So I was very excited, and we had conversations in house beforehand, and I always said, not that it was ever a discussion or an argument, but I was always like, it needs to be played straight, like 100%. Like because there's a couple things that I don't really care for in this world, and that is riff tracks and Mystery Science Theater. I'm not a fan of those things because I don't like that aspect of things, and I didn't want this. The only version of this movie to be out there would be, a comedy of sorts.
Yeah, right.
And the comedy plays itself. It's in the picture. So yeah, Kurtis. Everybody we spoke to, we said, we know that you're gonna laugh. We know it's ridiculous, but we're play it straight. I mean, even when we were doing kind of the meetings with the actors, we were saying, like, we know, like, when you read this, it's played straight. You're gonna look at it and probably laugh, and we want you to have a good time, but it's played completely straight. Yeah, and that was kind of the overall thing. My first time seeing it, it was kind of a rough edit we had, which was probably about like an hour and 45 minutes. Kurtis was like the first like
it was about 10 minutes.
First like hard edit, and it was silent. I mean, we had no sound, no nothing. And Kurtis sent it to me, and I watched it, and I had notes, and I had notes even though there was no dialogue or sound. I was like, yeah, we need to cut this
like
out.
Like a true producer.
Yeah. So, but Kurtis and I mean, we never butted heads once on the project. We worked incredibly well together and understand. I mean, we were both in it for the same like end result. But we were very nervous when we were doing it because we're really, I mean, it's Vinegar Syndrome as a whole putting this together, but really like the only people that were like actively seeing and working and structuring this thing together was myself and Kurtis. And then, obviously we would report to everybody else, and, there was always eyes on it. It's not like we were unsupervised or anything, but it felt like that at times. Like we were just like, okay, I guess they trust us to do this, and let's go ahead and do it. So, we were, recruited the actors, everything like that. And, I mean, the whole time, I mean, we're questioning, is it going to work? Like, is it going to be good? And I think, it was a clip of, because Cynthia did her, voiceover work, and it had some of the sound design to it. And Kurtis sent me a clip. It was like 30 seconds. And I was like, oh shit, this actually might work. But yeah, I mean, it was just nerve-wracking the whole time. Each cut that we saw, eventually we got it, trimmed down to what the running time is now after numerous conversations and edits that we did. Not wanting to overstay our welcome, of course, with it, not dragging on the joke too long, even though we're not doing a joke in the movie.
Right.
But yeah, it was just, I saw the final cut, and I mean, I was really proud of it. I was very, very proud of Kurtis, because I mean, he's the one that really kind of, I mean, he's, God behind the computer there, putting the film together. And then honestly, like a lot of credit to 3 Beep who did the sound design, because I mean, every like I said, every footstep, every car horn any background noise you hear, I mean, everything is constructed. Well, every single sound.
The thing about the sound design, I was going to get to this, is it doesn't sound like this is all new ADR. This is all new looping. This is all new Foley. This is all new everything. You could have just put that on top of an old movie and been like, here you go, like a bad Kung Fu dub. You didn't do it. It's synced perfectly. And also the sound design, it's degraded, and it sounds exactly as it would have if you had up-converted an old movie to Blu-ray quality. Again, this is, I'm not trying to just blow smoke up your guys' ass, but it's like a work of genius. Your crew, you guys, you did it. That's why I wanted to talk to you, because this could have gone wrong 50 different fucking ways, and it didn't. And you guys just like this, there was a narrow path to take, and you guys took it every step of the way.
Yeah, that was really, like Brad said, it was actually relatively nerve-wracking, because at any point in time it could have gone wrong, and we felt that. Like I really, and Brad had already mentioned it, but I have to give a lot of credit to 3 Beep. 3 Beep is a company out of New York. They did all of the sound design, and they helped a lot with the dubbing, in terms of they did a lot of the punks and the ancillary characters. They're known for dubbing foreign films here in America.
Wow.
And the good thing is a lot of the guys who worked there, they have an understanding of this stuff. So when I was working with the guys who were doing the sound design, it was the same thing. It was like we had these conversations like, okay, how are we playing the sound? And it's like, it's got to match the 80s. So luckily, some of the sound effects that they had access to were stuff that was older. They definitely Foleyed some stuff. On the Blu-ray disc, and a lot of people don't know this, it's not something like we made a huge deal out of, but there's 2 audio tracks on the Blu-ray disc. One is the stereo 2.0, but the other is the mono.
Wow. I have the Blu-ray. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so the mono, we actually laid off to tape and then brought back in, so we would have that like mono sound. So my fiance works at a recording studio, and they had like reel-to-reel tape machines. So we actually recorded it We took the digital file, laid it off the tape, and then took the tape file and laid it back off to digital. So you can if you really want that like kind of grindhouse vibe to it, you can watch it with the mono track.
Well, Brad is such a huge presence on Twitter in the exploitation movie world. He's always talking about, I'm watching these 15 movies tonight, and it's stuff you've heard of and stuff you haven't heard of. And then, and you're all over the documentary for the Blu-ray, Kurtis. I'm like, I didn't think I could get you. It was Brad's idea. I was like, you got to have Kurtis on. I was like, I got to get somebody on to talk about this because I've watched a lot of this stuff. And the care that you guys went to recreate this, the cast that you got, I'm sitting there, the plutonium man, like I'm in a weird position because I want to talk to you about every fucking subplot that's in this movie, the tonal shifts between where it ends, like you guys said, almost like a family friendly comic book movie, but it's also horrifically violent. There's also really dope action sequences. This motherfucker's hanging from a helicopter. You're like, I thought he was going to die during the helicopter sequence. I'm like, what the fuck? And then obviously the roller skates and then the him sliding into the trunk on a piece of fucking car, all this stuff. But then at the same time, I know not a lot of people have seen it yet necessarily because, you have to buy the Blu-ray and it's a blind buy. So I'm like, I don't want to steal away the magic that is the movie because I had the perfect what the fuck cult movie experience watching this. I watched it, I laughed, and by the end I had a migraine because I didn't understand what the fuck I was watching. I was like, what is this? And that's that best still yeah. And I don't want to spoil it, but I will get into this. The cast you have for this. You have Cynthia Rothrock, Michael Berryman, and like 50 other B-movie / genre movie Hall of Famers who decide to do this. Drop some names of who is in this movie doing the dubbing. And either one of you can answer this. How eager were they to jump on a project like this? Because this is almost like just for you guys, for me as an audience member and a podcaster, and it's like a once in a lifetime deal. This is nuts. This is like the only one of its kind in history, I think.
Yeah.
I can't speak for the actors, but I think each one had a different experience of when we contacted them, what we were actually doing. It didn't really come full circle on some people, I don't think, at first. But yeah, we had those discussions of who we wanted. We had a list of, numerous people for each character, just would see what would fit best. And, some people got it like right away. Others, I don't know, maybe they thought it was a little too jokey when they were seeing the footage. But I mean, they all did a wonderful job.
Yeah.
But I think it was really kind of the turn of events was probably in the recording studio when they started seeing the footage. Because when we were prepping them on everything, we had a lost movie, they were dubbing, Cynthia obviously was used to this with her own work, dubbing herself.
She's amazing in this movie, though. She's amazing.
Yeah, so she had experience, so she was comfortable, she was ready to go. But I just don't think she knew kind of what the movie itself. Don was pretty comfortable, because he did a little bit. He's done some video games and stuff like that. So every actor kind of had it. What is that?
Yeah, hold on a second. Yeah, I'm here. I'm doing a podcast. Sorry.
I'm leaving that.
There's still people in the building, so
I'm leaving it in.
So everybody kind of had a different approach and a different thing, and Kurtis can speak on behalf because he was kind of there virtually because we also did a lot of this during the pandemic, where we had basically Kurtis remotely in Connecticut, we had 3 Beep in New York, and then we had the talent go to a nearby recording studio to do the lines. We don't really focus too much of that in the documentary, but that's kind of how these were set up, and it was very, very, very tough in order to do that. But
well, were you guys, Kurtis? Were you directing the actors at all? Did that fall on your shoulders as well?
A little bit. So yes, I was there for most of the recording sessions. I wasn't there for like the ancillary characters and the punks and all that. That was all handled by 3Beep. But yeah, when we were doing these remote sessions, so like the main talent, so there's about like, I would say 8, what I would say like main talent. So like Don the Dragon, Cynthia, Leon Isaac Kennedy, Linnea Quigley, you could check the credits. I was in for all of those sessions, and all of those people we cast because they were in other Vinegar Syndrome movies that we had released. So that was something that we had talked about early on, is that we wanted to cast from within the like Vinegar Syndrome universe. Each of them, like Brad was just saying, kind of approached the project differently. I think Don basically said yes because he's never done anything like that before, and like Cynthia kind of said yes because she's done dubbing before and she likes to work with Don. So if Don said yes, she said yes. It's kind of like one of those things. Linnea, we've put out a bunch of her movies, so we already had like a connection with her, and all this kind of stuff. So everybody had their own reason for becoming involved in the movie. But yeah, when we were doing, so I would be remotely connected to all of these. So like I could see the video of, like they could see the movie, we could all see the movie. And then, sometimes I could see them in the booth. Sometimes I could only just hear them. And we all just like worked as a team. So there would be like the engineer and the sound studio where they were recording. And then I would be linked up with 3Beep, and they were very helpful in the dubbing because it's just not something I've really done before. So I wrote the dialogue to try to match like sort of the best that I could. If I could read the lips, I used what was there. If not, I used what I needed to get across the information that I needed to get across and try to match the syllables at least close enough. But yeah, it was definitely like a joint effort. A lot of the direction really just came from speaking to them prior, and then when we were in the booth, it's actually really hard to sort of get a performance when you're trying to like match the timing and match what's going on the screen. And so sometimes the direction really just kind of came down to timing and like making it work, and that's why I think it's an interesting project for the actors, because it's actually really tough to do that. So yeah, there was a level of direction. It was definitely a joint effort between myself and 3Beep, and they were very helpful with that. And then at the end of the day, if like something went a little too far, that's where I would kind of come in and be like, no, let's like bring it back, or like actually let's go a little farther or whatever. And then really in the edit was where a lot of the final decisions were made, basically by me, where I'd be like, okay, that's too much. Let's kind of bring that back, and it's like, okay, that's funny. We can keep that and push that a little farther. Stuff like that.
So the plutonium guy. Okay, the plutonium killer. I don't want to spoil anything. I don't know that I could if I even tried to describe it verbally. But that performance, without the audio, is so bizarre. His entree into the movie, everything about that plot is so strange. The darts, the limousine, the trafficking, the eroticism, the bizarre sex scene with the guy's real life girlfriend, it just all seemingly comes out of nowhere, as if it's been lifted from a different movie and added into this one. When you're going through the footage and you're seeing that stuff for the first time, do you feel like you got the reels mixed up? You're like, wait a minute, what the fuck is this? Is this like, is this from a different movie?
I mean, to be honest, I felt like that a lot. It's not just with the plutonium killer. There were definitely times where I was like, is this from the same movie?
Because that's not a performance that you could be like, well, you better tone that down, because the guy delivering the performance, the mouth, his enunciation in certain scenes, like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
Yeah. So, well, as time has gone on, this could be a huge conversation, so I won't go too deep into this. But as time has gone on, we've actually are starting to learn about who some of these actors were, because we had no cast sheet or anything like that, and we're still putting stuff together now that the movie's out and people are finding out. People are coming to us and being like, "Oh my god, I worked on that movie in the '80s!" Like,
wow.
So we're starting to find out some more information, and we're starting to learn. We don't know who the plutonium killer is yet, but we know that he was part of like a martial arts theater group, and a lot of these guys were all cast from that. So, maybe that explains some of these like big performances or whatever. They weren't really actors. A lot of them, the reporter, Adrian Meltzer, she played the original character. She was actually a reporter, and that's how she got cast for the role.
Yeah, she's in the behind the. You guys got in touch with her, and Brad, I think maybe you talked to her or somebody talked to her, and she's in the behind the scenes stuff, and she seemed like a very sweet lady who was like, "Why am I like I was in this movie?"
Well, she came to the world premiere of it.
Wow. Yeah, she's a good soul. Yeah,
we had our world premiere at Beyond Fest in LA back in October, and we had Leon Isaac Kennedy, Cynthia Rothrock, Don the Dragon Wilson, and Adrian Meltzer come out. But Adrian was, she shed some light on it. I think she was just about as confused as we were. And I mean, just even talking to her in the beginning, I mean, she thought this was a total joke. She didn't know we were serious.
Wow.
It took a long time, like maybe about 9 months of talking to her and easing her into that. We're not here to make fun of her. Like, this is a real thing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until probably after she saw the movie, she embraced it and realized that we aren't completely full of shit.
Well, you have to imagine, right? You're a real life newscaster. You have a real career. You're doing different stuff. You're relatively young. You're just kind of, you're building your life. You take a risk. You do this thing. It completely falls on its ass, falls on its face. It's never released. It never sees the light of day. It's like a weird memory that you have that you probably don't talk very much about. And out of the blue, some guy in Florida is like, "Hey, remember that thing you did that we're finishing it, and we're going to put it out on Blu-ray, and we're going to do custom artwork for it." And my buddy Kurtis, we're dubbing with like legit actors, and we're gonna have a world premiere. We're gonna do all this sort of stuff. You'd have to think like either this is a scam, or it's gonna make fun of me, or it could potentially bring up like an embarrassing moment of my career. So the fact that you guys were able to earn her trust, and that you played it the way that you did, which is you're not mocking anybody or anything. You're not mocking John Liu. You tried to work with him. You wanted to have him, and you wanted his involvement.
Yeah, well, a big part of that is, just honestly, I would consider it a necessary skill set of being a human being. Speaking because, I mean, I'm used to it because we release a lot of movies where people only were in that movie. So when we call them up for interviews, they're really taken back. I get all types of responses, either then "don't call me ever again" to "why are you doing this?" And it really is just earning everybody's trust, because sometimes they think we're here to make fun of them or make fun of the project.
Yeah.
And they just don't want it brought up again. And that's just kind of the nature of it. And, I never gave up on Adrian. I wanted to get her trust, and I'm happy we did. I mean, she saw the final product. And it was kind of neat because everybody that was there, the four of them, Don, Leon, and Cynthia, it was the first time of them seeing anything. So they went in and they read for these lines. It's not like they watched the entire movie. They went in and they read for these lines. It probably was very weird for them. Maybe it's not so much for Don, because Don saw a lot of it. But, we actually got a nice kind of, when Leon Isaac Kennedy was on stage, he said, he was very kind, and, he was very impressed with what we did. And, just kind of taking the time and effort to do this. And like I said, play it straight. and just all in all, I mean, all we wanted to do was be respectful of it, even though it is zany and kooky and silly. It was about approaching the project, and I think when I was talking to Kurtis, and Kurtis said this earlier, as I reiterated probably every conversation that we had with everybody, is that we're making a movie in 1984. We are making this in 1984. That's how you have to project your mind, that we're here to do it. No one sets out to make a bad movie,
right?
That'd be stupid.
Well, and the people that do, it's like Kurtis was saying, it's not funny.
Oh,
it's a waste of time,
and I don't like those things.
Yeah. Yep.
So when Adrian, after having conversations with her, and I think that we sent her a copy, like a link to see the movie, and she kind of wanted to do that before her interview, because she was very standoffish, not in a negative sense. She was very standoffish about participating because of that, and I understood that. That's why I kind of held her hand the entire time, and it really gained her trust. And then she loved what we did. It's kind of it's a weird project, but Kurtis and I know that evening that we were there at Beyond Fest, we had a lot of things going on because the talent was there, and wanting to make sure everything was all set. But I know Kurtis he sat in the very back. I was a ball of nerves. I was distracting myself with other things, trying to make Cynthia was okay, Adrian was okay, everybody was had their seat. But when I sat down, I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Like, are people actually going to enjoy this? And honestly, it was probably one of the best theater experiences for me. I'm sure Kurtis too, because we're watching something that we worked 2 years on, or even longer, really. That was kind of 37 years in the making. And it was just a surreal experience, and knowing that people got it, and that we actually had people laughing with us, I think was one of the most gratifying things I've ever experienced, because we didn't know how people were going to take it. Were we assholes for making this thing? Was it funny? Did we do a good job? Who knows? And honestly, just and plus, even after that, even after the theatrical experience, when it came out, it was just every single week, something else was happening with it. Someone else was watching it. Red Letter Media did a wonderful video, kind of spotlighting the film, and gave it a lot of attention. And they praised us for our work. And it's just been a kind of a wild journey, and very, very thankful for anybody who watches it.
The company is called Vinegar Syndrome. You're putting out, as Kurtis said, a lot of movies with sex and violence, but your entire approach is to not be sleazy. That the movies may have sleaze in them, but you're not sleazy guys, or it's not a sleazy business. You're just trying to preserve films, and the spirit of that is in this project. Kurtis, when you're at that premiere, the world premiere at Beyond Fest, you've recreated this thing. You see the reaction. Take me that night. What was your experience as the redirector and rewriter of New York Ninja?
Oh man, I was, like Brad was saying, he was cutting out a little bit there where he was talking, but he was a ball of nerves. But I was a ball of nerves. I had a lot of faith in the fact that it was going to play well, but you just never know. You're like, is this going to work? Are people really going to appreciate all the hard work that went into it? Because like you said, it could have failed at any point in time. So I was just like, man, I hope this all came together. I hope people really like it. The day of, especially, we were out in LA, and I don't even know. I don't know. I didn't know. I don't think I ate all day. I was just
I walked 20 miles because I couldn't sit down because I know it. I was talking to Kurtis, we woke up at 9:00 and we're like, well, we can't do anything right now because the premiere is at 7 p.m. We're gonna be late. We can't eat anything. We can't go anywhere because we're gonna be late.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's right. Like my fiance, she was with me, and we were like, she's like, oh, you want to go down, because we were in Santa Monica. She's like, you want to go down to the pier? And I'm like checking my watch, and she's like, honey, it's like 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, yeah, I know, but the premiere's at 7. I don't want to go too far. So, yeah, so I was a ball of nerves, but as soon as the movie started playing, honestly, it went really well, because that first opening scene, without saying too much, a lot happens in that first. Yes. It's a roller coaster in that first 2 minutes, and
yep,
and it really sets up the vibe of the movie. So I'm always like, if people respond well in these first 2 minutes, if they laugh and they cheer and they get excited in those first 2 minutes, I know like we're good. And that's the exact. Yeah, that's the exact reaction that we got. And, I'm just, as I was watching it, I'm like, okay, how's this scene going to play out? Okay, how's this scene going to play out? And, they kept getting better and better. And what's actually really great is now that not only did I watch it with the audience at Beyond Fest, but it's doing its theatrical tour now. It's doing we did a 35 millimeter print, and so it's doing the print is doing a theatrical run, and I've tried to go out to as many as I can to do like Q&As and to see. So I've seen it with a crowd now a number of times, and it's always exciting, to be honest. Like watching the crowd react to these moments. And there's been moments that, like, when I was working on them, I was like, I edited the scene and I didn't know how it was going to play. And there's things that, like, people laugh at that I was like, oh, I guess that is kind of funny. Like, I'm actually, I'm actually appreciating things that I didn't appreciate before. And I laugh in the theater too. Like, I've seen this thing like literally hundreds of times.
Too many times.
Wow.
Oh my God.
But like, I just this past weekend, I was at a screening and sitting in the audience, I was laughing too, because you can't not enjoy it, and I that's really the best part about it, is like the excitement and the joy that it's like bringing to people is like, it makes it really all worth it. So
where's the road show going? Where can people find information to see if it's coming to a town near them?
That is a good question. Well, I mean, for now, like, there is the Blu-ray that's available on vinegarsyndrome.com. The road show for the most part is relegated to the US and Canada right now. And we're trying to get up. So one of the problems is with COVID, there was a lot of theaters that were like, let's see what happens. And now it's really starting to kind of explode. So hopefully we can get more of those dates up on vinegarsyndrome.com. So I definitely keep an eye on that.
Well, if you're in my neck of the woods, I'm going to be there. I'm going to bring people with me. I'd love to meet you in person and shake your hand, because you did a work of genius on this movie that was just rotted away somewhere in a film can. It's just amazing. Do you guys have any upcoming projects whatsoever at Vinegar Syndrome you're excited about that you would care to break here on Binge Movies, or just say, hey, this is something we've got something in the works. Check the website, whatever. What's something you can?
We have a ton of stuff in the works, but we're not gonna tell you.
Yeah.
Well, you just big time me on my own show. That's very nice. You got to give me something. Well, what are you excited about?
I did want to butt in with one thing that we haven't discussed yet. Is we kind of hinted at it touched on everything, but a huge thing that I was very nervous about with this movie, and Kurtis can probably tell you after the sirens and fire trucks passed. And I had this conversation with many times, and Kurtis just kept on. I think he was just like, it's fine, like it's going to be okay. Was a soundtrack. Voyager was the guys that came in to do the soundtrack, and I was very particular about the soundtrack, because I hate this kind of new everybody does synth thing, and we want to make our movie sound like a John Carpenter score and whatever. I was very particular about it, and Kurtis is the one that set all that up with the band, and they just did a great job, because they hit at a moment all through the film where, for me, even though I'm very critical when it comes to soundtracks for movies, especially these ones today, because I get a little irritated with certain things that I hear. They nailed it so well of keeping it to the point where there is kind of like kind of a nuance. It feels that it's created for the movie, but also at the same time, it feels certain tracks might have been discovered with the movie. Those guys just knocked it clear out of the park, and really what they did is, with Kurtis with the edit, with him writing the script, that's one thing. With the voice actors nailing it and Rebeat doing their thing, like everything was falling into place, and then Voyager just come in and kind of elevated. I think the movie, their score just elevates it to another level, and it's just something I was so proud to hear, and honestly, I just couldn't believe it, and it's it's a soundtrack, and Kurtis can probably attest to this. I said we need music that you can listen to without watching the movie. Like I want to be able to listen to this without actually playing the movie. I want memorable songs. I want something, and yeah, there's so many catchy tunes in that score, and they just did a wonderful job. I mean, honestly, they like I said, they elevated the movie completely.
I definitely want to give a shout out to Voyager 3. If you don't know who they are, definitely look them up. Their music is incredible. They went above and beyond for this, and they approached it the same exact way that we did. Again, like Brad was saying, there's a lot of bands out there nowadays that are doing these sort of like synth rock kind of albums where they're sort of making like fake soundtracks to movies that don't exist, and some of them are good, some of them aren't as good, but like, first of all, Voyager 3 is great, but like they were excited because they got to do exactly what we got to do, which is basically go back in time, and actually they were able to do a score for an 80s movie. Like, how many of these bands can really say that? So they did a killer job, and I do want to say, for the people that have seen the movie, there's a little rap song at the end of the credits, and most people don't know this, but that was actually originally created for the movie. The rapper Bronx Style Bob was commissioned in the 80s prior to the movie being shot to do a rap song.
Holy shit.
And yeah, that was really made for New York Ninja. And we didn't find that out till later. Michael Gingold was helping us with trying to uncover some of the stuff from behind the scenes, and he was the one who he called us one day and was like, "Did you know there's an original theme?" And we're like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "There's a rapper named Bronx Style Bob that was hired to do a song, and we were able to get a copy of it." And I was like, "Oh my god, this has to go in the credits." So, the music is just killer and really brings the whole movie together. So, wow. Voyager 3, check them out.
What an amazing story. Brad big time me on my own podcast. Now it's time for me to big time Brad and Kurtis on my own podcast. I want you guys to individually name for me your top 5 cult or genre movies of all time that Vinegar Syndrome doesn't sell. Brad, let's start with you. Give me 5 cult or genre films.
You didn't do that. You just put us on the fucking spot. Now Kurtis gets a second. I'll talk longer so Kurtis actually can think of 5. Some stuff that I really like. I enjoy watching movies and having a good time. Like, I like to have a good time with silly movies, and I don't want to sit there and make fun of them. But some that I really love is like Doom Asylum. I'm a huge fan of Doom Asylum. It's so zany and weird, and I even created a drinking game one time to that, and you'll get trashed for 30 minutes. Slaughter High is a huge influence for me. That's actually one of the films that got me into screenwriting. I became good friends with Mark Ezra when I was like 13, writing to him, and
wow.
How much I love Slaughter High. And I wrote a script, and he like read it and gave me notes, and I got to meet George Dugdale when doing that. So, Slaughter High is a big one for me. I was talking about this earlier. yesterday or something is Jeff Lieberman's Just Before Dawn. I think it's just incredible, frightening movie. It has one of the best killer reveals where you think there's just one guy that, because it always in like Friday the 13th and Halloween, like Jason's here and then he just appears. He's walking, but he's somehow in the building with you. And there's that moment in Just Before Dawn when they're on the bridge and you're like, wait a second, is he supernatural? Then you find out that there's two fucking killers. Spoiler alert, I guess. It is like 45 years old. In the score that Brad Fiedel does in that is magnificent. In which that's a serious horror film when the other two are kind of silly. Phantom of the Mall is another one. I think it's a great project, even though it didn't turn out the way it was supposed to, as far as being a more serious film. And then obviously, oh man, I forget his name. Charlie Fries kind of took over the project and kind of reassembled, and they took out parts of the movie. The original script is killer to that film. But I still enjoy it because we get to kind of root for a slasher in a way, the bad guy. Is that 4? I need another one.
Yeah, one more.
And this would probably go to one of my all-time favorite horror films is Messiah of Evil.
Oh wow!
I think it's one of the best. It's incredibly well photographed. It's a beautiful film. It's scary. It has a lot of unnerving moments. The performances are great. Stephen Katz, who shot it, who also shot the Blues Brothers, and if you want to purchase our film Sister that we just put out, Stephen Katz also shot that. Just an amazing cinematographer, and just a powerhouse of talent behind that movie. But it's incredibly eerie, and it's one of the very first horror films that I saw when I was younger. I would say in the first 100, but that one stood out the most because I was genuinely frightened by it. Probably when I was like 7 or something. Like a
true producer, you still snuck a plug in for Vinegar Syndrome. That didn't get past me. I heard it.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite movies. Stephen Katz is literally one of the best cinematographers in that era, and everything that he shot is just beautiful. His framing, his lighting, and Sister is a beautiful gothic movie. So,
Kurtis, you've had extra time here. Now you got to work in at least 2 plugs. We got to sneak them in. We got to do it. You got to do it more stealthily than Brad did there. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, all right. So I'll start. I mean, that's like the most loaded question I've ever heard. It's almost like, what's your favorite movie? It's like, I don't know. Well, how long do you have? I'm a kung fu fan. Probably one of my all-time favorites is Master of the Flying Guillotine. So, which you can't mention without the one-armed boxer, because it's basically almost the same. It's a sequel to One-Armed Boxer. They basically kind of go together. So those are 2 of my favorite just kung fu movies because they're so wacky and kind of over the top. And so I'm gonna put those 2 together as one, so I don't cheat. I know I already mentioned it, but The Secret Rivals is just one of my all-time favorite kung fu movies. It's what got me into John Liu, and it's really one of those movies that actually really started to get me to appreciate martial arts, because for anybody who's seen it, the fight at the end, there's 2 guys fighting the main bad guy, one of them being John Liu, and it's one of them uses punches and John Liu uses kicks because that's what he's good at, and the end fight is just crazy. So that's my number 2. Keeping it in the world of New York films, considering New York Ninja. Nope. Did you lose me?
No, I got you.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my headphones did something weird. Keeping it in the realm of New York films, I got to say Vigilante is probably one of my all-time favorite New York and revenge films.
Wow.
Everything about that is great, and I actually watched that a bunch of times while working on New York Ninja, because it just I don't know, just staying in that vibe of and that mentality of like watching New York films. Love Vigilante. Well, Brad had mentioned Lieberman when he mentioned Just Before Dawn, and it's funny because his movie Squirm is probably one of my favorites because it actually is what kind of got me into cult films when I was younger. I remember watching that as a young kid. My mom, for some reason, she loves like monster movies and especially like the killer insect type movies. Like she's a killer ants, like Phase 4, and stuff like The Bees, which Vinegar Syndrome has put out. They did you catch that one? Yeah.
One more.
Yeah. She loves those type of movies, and I remember Squirm being on the TV when I was a kid, and it actually freaked me out. It like literally freaked me out because I was about the age where you would transition from taking like baths to showers, and anybody who's seen that movie, there's a scene where the worms rain out from the shower head, and it freaked me the hell out. Yeah. But it's one of those movies that actually kind of got me into cult films. So that's a big one. I don't know, that was 4, I think. And just to stay in the realm of ninjas, I got to go with Revenge of the Ninja.
Yeah, of course.
Anything with Sho Kazugi. Sho Kazugi is awesome. I love his movies. Revenge of the Ninja. I mean, I probably had that on repeat while I was working on New York Ninja. There was a lot of movies that I kind of watched repeatedly. There was a lot of like New York films. Miss 45 I watched a bunch of times. It's not the same style as New York Ninja, but just anything that stayed in that realm. Vinegar Syndrome put out a movie called Death Promise. There you go. That's my second Vinegar Syndrome plug. Which is actually interesting because we ended up finding out that there were some people that were involved in that film because it's another martial arts movie in New York. So we found out there was some crossover between New York Ninja and that. So yeah, I watched a lot of like New York films and a lot of ninja films just to stay in that mind frame. A bunch of stuff from like the Godfrey Ho films I watched during that time. But anyway, if you're going to talk about ninja films, Revenge of the Ninja to me is the one. So yeah.
Well, you guys have been more than generous with your time. You've been more than generous with your answers. You've busted my balls, but you gave and you receive, which is the spirit of binge movies here. So it was all in good fun. It's an honor to talk to both of you guys. This is an amazing fucking project. I own it. I was not sent a copy by Vinegar Syndrome. I went out and bought it. All my Vinegar Syndrome Blu-rays are purchased. This isn't some shill cast. I actually buy their products, and I got New York Ninja. Obviously, it was a blind. As soon as it came out, I got it. Knew nothing about it because no one had talked about it yet. I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And I've seen some WTF movies in my life, but I can't speak highly enough about the project itself. If it does come to my neck of the woods here in sunny tropical Akron, Ohio, I'd love to be able to go to a screening to it. And if you guys ever want to come back about an upcoming project, you're more than welcome to. If you can fit me in your very busy lives and schedules, love to have you guys back. Get your plugs in individually and get your plugs in for Vinegar Syndrome. Where can our listeners find, other than vinegarsyndrome.com, just sell yourself, sell Vinegar Syndrome, sell New York Ninja?
Brad.
Well, to kind of piggyback off what you said, I was born in Akron, Ohio.
Hey!
Yeah.
Well, we're a DIY podcast in Akron, Ohio. We cover the entire spectrum of movies, of genre and stuff. So we are of a kindred soul, my friend.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, do you remember Video Time?
Oh, hell yeah. Yes.
Yeah. But Video Time was my school.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
is either going to be Video Time or maybe Roadrunner, one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was mainly Video Time because there was one in Massillon,
yeah,
and then there was one in Akron. So and then I think there was one in Canton too. So my because most of my family lived in the Akron, Canton, Massillon area.
Yep.
And so there was like 3 video times around that around there. So
the video time in Canton was that little tiny one that was that sat right there on the hill by the custard stand where they had ice cream. It was right there off of Fulton, I think.
Yeah. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, because my grandmother or my mom worked at that custard stand. I believe.
There you go.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a huge thing for me was video time because they carried all this stuff.
Yeah.
So if you want your answer of why we release the movies we do, video time's my reason.
Oh wow!
I mean, they had a plethora of horror. Their wall was insane.
Yeah.
For horror film. But yeah, you could find me at Brad F. Henderson on Twitter. It's pretty much all I use. I am on Facebook, but I probably won't talk to you on there because I never use it. But yeah, mainly Twitter. I'm pretty responsive on there. I try to answer everybody's questions. I do what I can. Always recommended movies, recommend Vinegar Syndrome titles, tell you to, maybe buy this Vinegar Syndrome title instead of this Vinegar Syndrome title if I have a preference.
Brad's the sort of guy who will watch the entire Subspecies series of films in a single evening and be like, 4 is good, 3 is shit, 2 is no good, 5 is just basically a montage from all the other previous films. Don't watch.
No, I'm always watching. Yeah,
don't watch any of them.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And Letterboxd too. I mean, I don't really. There's no direct messaging on Letterboxd, but you can follow me on Letterboxd to see what I'm watching and keep up with that. So,
Kurtis, how about you? What do you got? Where can we follow you?
Yeah, so I'm not great at social media. It's not really my thing, but Instagram is probably where I am the most. Kurtis Spieler. You can find me on Instagram. Tell me if you like the movie, hashtag New York Ninja. I follow the hashtag so I can keep track of who's watching it and enjoying it. You can feel free to check out my other movies. I have a movie called Sheepskin that was released through Unearthed Films. I have another movie called The Devil's Well, which was released through Wild Eye. And I have a third movie that's coming out called The Dead Girl in Apartment 3, starring Adrian King from Friday the 13th. That one is coming out through Wild Eye soon enough. And vinegarsyndrome.com, buy directly from the website. Like we offer, slip covers and special editions through the website. Like buy from us direct. I recommend that for most places, but it's cheaper. Fuck Amazon. Like come to us.
DIY,
go direct.
DIY or die. Go direct.
Yeah, exactly.
I always people always put those Amazon links out. They're like, "Hey, this is available." I was like, "Fuck Amazon, buy it from us." You can literally get it with a slip cover, and it's like $10 cheaper.
Oh
like,
yeah,
what are you doing buying like pre-orders on Amazon?
We didn't even get to the box art and the for all of your releases, but especially New York Ninja. You open it up, it comes with a book. It comes with a special features disc. It comes in it's not even a slip case. It's a box with completely original art, then a high quality Blu-ray inside of it, and then like the making of. And there's hours and hours and hours of special features. I mean, I can't sell this project enough. It's downstairs. If I had it right here, I'd hold it up. But this isn't a video cast, so it'd be fucking worthless. But I'm just saying, when Vinegar Syndrome goes all in on a project, they go all in. They go above and beyond, probably above and beyond budget. But they're delivering for fans of these sort of movies and movies in general. So go to their website. I always buy direct from you guys. Usually when I get one, you guys are pretty quick to ship. I get it really quick. I watch it and I go, hey, Vinegar Syndrome, blah, 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 blah. Vinegar Syndrome on Twitter doesn't respond. Brad always responds and goes, hope you enjoyed it. He even will follow up. He'll ask questions. What'd you think about this? What'd you think about that? I don't know if you know this, but we've had full exchanges, Brad, about movies on there before that you guys have released. And I'm like, how does this guy have fucking time to talk to me on fucking Twitter? But that's what you get when you go with Vinegar Syndrome. These guys, I mean, you heard their deep cuts of cult and exploitation films and genre pictures. These guys are the real deal. They're not running a sleazy operation. They love movies. They're not out to mock movies. And they're great and generous enough to talk to a DIY podcast, even though we are lucky to have the audience we do that comes straight to you from sunny, tropical Akron, Ohio. Thank you guys again. Kurtis, when you got your own independent movies, your own feature films coming on, if you're ever looking for a place to promo them, come on Binge Movies. We'll have you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
And appreciate you having us. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you guys for your time. And until next time, binge on.